All right, so this right here is exactly why our news looks like this. Mostly doom and gloom, kind of giving hints that maybe there's a W somewhere in here. Something about Vance's homecoming. Iranian military leader vows Tehran will not submit as U.S. prepares further economic squeeze. So, right there makes you think we're, we're doing the squeeze, right? Trump underwater in 47 states. In D.C., new projection finds. Dow surges 500 points Friday. Like, good news. Cyclospora cases are starting to trend down. Good news. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney calls new U.S. tariffs a miscalculation. It is a machine. And this is why, for the past 2 weeks, you haven't been able to get away from certain topics. But this topic right here is exactly what's going on. Why they want to divide you, get you to focus on these midterms, all while understanding that it doesn't matter who you vote for. The things that you and yours care about the most will not get better and will not get solved. At least not relatively quickly. The worst thing, I believe, that other than the Epstein files, that Trump could have done, and other than Project Warp Speed, is this. It is the nail in the coffin. And if it goes the way that the numbers are projecting, it is the nail in the coffin for much of the entire world. There will no longer be a third world after this. The first world will probably end up being a lot like the third world. So, Great Depression 2.0. Titled The Iran War Energy Crisis is Just Getting Started. The Iran war has pushed the global oil refining industry to the brink, signaling that diesel and gasoline prices may remain elevated for years, deal or no deal. The global energy inflation shock is far from over. While oil markets adapted remarkably well to the abrupt loss of a fifth of the global crude supplies from the Middle East during the conflict, workarounds for the refining industry have been far more limited. The divergence between crude and fuel prices tells the story. Benchmark Brent crude oil is currently around $90 a barrel, even though that is up about 25% from levels at the outbreak of the conflict on February 28th of this year, 2026. It is a significant retreat from the wartime peak at $118. Taken together, the disruptions have created a hole in global fuel production that the industry is struggling to fill. Global refinery runs in the second quarter were 5.1 million barrels per day lower than a year earlier, according to the IEA. Sky-high prices also reduced demand among businesses and consumers, but not by enough to fully offset the supply crunch. Demand for refined products last quarter fell by 4 million barrels per day, leaving a more than 1 million BPD shortfall. The balance is expected to deteriorate further in the third quarter. Refinery runs are projected to be 4.1 million BPD lower year on year, while demand is expected to decline by just 2.4 million BPD. These projections remain highly uncertain given the fluid geopolitical situation in both the Middle East and Russia, but the direction is clear. Fuel supply is shrinking faster than demand. So we need more oil, and it just can't be made. So Russia is also a big problem with this. It's not just the Iran war. They're still recovering from COVID era problems. And these wars seem to be a direct attack on energy across the entire world. Refined products have not enjoyed the same relief. European diesel prices have surged more than 70% since the war began, while U.S. gasoline prices have climbed around 60%. This reflects a dramatic decline in refining output. The war knocked out more than 20% of the Middle East's 9.6 million barrels per day of refining capacity, according to the International Energy Agency. So it's the loss of Gulf crude, in turn, led many refiners, particularly in Asia, to curtail operations. That strain was then amplified by months of relentless Ukrainian strikes on Russian energy infrastructure. These attacks have cut Russia's refining throughput by nearly 30% to below 40 million, or 4 million, barrels per day in recent months, forcing Moscow to ban diesel exports in July. Meanwhile, diesel refining margins in Europe, Asia, and the US have surged to unprecedented levels, so they were already maxed out at making it. Russia, being under attack, has now said we can't give anyone else our oil because we can't keep up. Europe, Asia, and the US can't keep up. And it's starting to trickle down. So the US was able to kind of stave off the price just a little bit, even though it doubled in price. It's nothing compared to what it can be, and a good chance it will be here soon, if you can even get it, with their reserves. But the reserves quickly depleted, and they're gone. So it says, what if a diplomatic breakthrough between Washington and Tehran permanently reopens the Strait of Hormuz? Well, that would likely lead to a plunge in crude prices. It probably would not deliver quick relief in the refined product market. See, it's not just, okay, you can have it. They don't have the ability to get it. That's the issue. It's the infrastructure, supply chain infrastructure. It's gone. That's because more than 20 refineries across the Gulf suffered damage during the war, many of which will require extensive repairs. Lead times for crucial equipment, including compressors, heat exchangers, and specialized catalysts, were already stretched before the conflict began, making a speedy recovery implausible. China's response to the tightening supplies will also be critical. The world's second largest refiner sharply reduced its processing rates and curtailed fuel exports during the war. Demand destruction could prove more significant than currently projected, as consumers and businesses pull back on spending in the face of eye-watering energy bills. But the urgent need to replenish, and in some cases expand, global fuel inventories should add upward pressure to refining demand, potentially for years. This dynamic raises the prospect of a sustained bout of energy-driven inflation this winter and beyond. People out there screaming solar right now. It's not going to happen. Recent inflation data is already pointing in that direction. U.S. consumer prices rose 3.4% in July from a year earlier, driven in large part by a 14.7% increase in energy costs, including a 24.6% jump in gasoline prices. Eurozone inflation accelerated to 2.9%, led by a 10% rise in energy costs, while Japan's producer price index rose 7.2% in July. They need more oil. They can't get enough. The suppliers, right? It's not just the dealers, right? The dealers have walked off the street because they need it for themselves. And it's starting to become a very large problem for everyone else. Because even if they wanted to give it out to their enemies, they don't have enough. Many Wall Street analysts and economists still assume the energy price spike will be a short-term phenomenon, unlikely to feed through to core inflation. But if the refined product crisis is as serious as current data suggests, that assumption may be way too optimistic, I would say. This is especially true in Europe and Asia, where liquefied natural gas prices have also spiked. The U.S. has not been immune to rising energy prices, and the risk to current projections through year-end is clearly tilted to the upside. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has made lowering the cost of living a central pillar of his second term, which is hilarious because everything's went up, has seemingly acknowledged this, warning Americans last week to prepare for higher energy prices. Nearly 6 months into the Iran war, the world appears to be witnessing a slow-motion crash. The fuel market's safety buffer has been stripped away as inventories have been depleted, while disruptions caused by the war continue to strain the overstressed refining system. The energy crisis that really matters to the global economy is just getting started. See, the issue is the issue for these people. It's something out of their hands. It's something they cannot control. And they are just gripping to the last bit of fibers of your attention, trying to get us to not freak out, to not hold them accountable for what they're doing still doing, and plan on continuing to do. It's really interesting because it doesn't matter where you are politically. It doesn't matter your feelings or what you believe in. This is something that's going to affect all of us. And it's not just an us problem. It's an everyone problem. And it really makes you wonder, thinking about the data centers. If our energy is expected to explode in price while minimum wage is what it is, and just those markets are down and people can barely make it already, and they want to force feed these giant data centers out in everywhere they possibly can, but in rural areas, it's going to destroy people. This is what's going to cause some sort of escalation, possibly some sort of civil war. People are going to be starving out here. And people already are. That makes you really wonder about this. Trump's ballroom, costs are rising. What we know about the secret underground bunker. Don't really need to get into it, but we all know the elites are making bunkers. Like, what is the data center for real, right? But we know they're making bunkers. They know what's coming. And they're making sure you're not going to catch them outside when it happens. Just more money spent, right? It says the development cost of President Trump's White House ballroom keeps rising, which pointed to the east, and it's the ballroom, where people ritualistically sacrifice their children to the deity, as does speculation about what the finished project, including its underground complex, will look like. The big picture, Trump's ballroom project is more than a simple remodel of the East Wing. It's a complete overhaul featuring what appears to be a military-grade underground bunker, meant to protect and secure the president. Project remains in legal limbo after a federal appeals court ruled in August that Trump's ballroom plans need congressional approval. Trump said he plans to ask the Supreme Court to overturn the decision. And he's also saying that our taxpaying, our dollars, the people's money, isn't going to go to it. So, looks like this guy is creating the biggest problems in the world for everyone in the entire world, and is really, really pushing to make sure that he's safe when it all that bubble pops and the shit hits the fan. Make sure to leave a like, comment, let me know what you think about this. We'll catch you on the next one.